So, hello and welcome. Nice evening, nice afternoon, wherever you are. And we're starting with a new writing workshop. And I invite you to just join me and about talking about writing, about narration, about publishing, about rewriting a story, about analyzing how to write a book, analyzing stories, improving publishing. So if you have any questions about those topics, just let me know. This is a part of a series where I review an older novel I wrote and basically rewrite it using the knowledge I gained since I wrote the book. So, I didn't publish it, but it was around 2 years ago or so that I wrote it. And with my new knowledge about writing, narration, storytelling, I'm trying to improve it. And I hope that is the goal of this series, that I learn something new, you learn something new, and maybe you can use it for your own books. So if you have any questions, just use the comments. And I will give you a short introduction what this is about. Other than that, I will continue what I've written last time. If you can't really catch up, I recommend you to watch the older videos on the topic. I think this is the 8th or 7th part series, but I will try to summarize it in the beginning so that you're ready to start. Today, I will talk about more about the other characters. So in the last few times, we focused on the backstory of the novel and the main character. And today, I want to talk about the additional characters that are also in the novel, but that we haven't focused on them yet. Okay, for that, we will first look at what we have so far, and this gives you also an info what this all is about. Okay, so this is, if you haven't seen it, this is Overleaf. This is just an editor for documents, mostly in the scientific realm, but I just use it for books. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'll just zoom in so that you know what this is here. You can read it. Okay. So last time we focused on the main character, that was Catherine, and her main character point is, okay, she is overconfident and she failed at something in her life, and now she tries to regain that confidence. For this, I mean, this is the basic story, and this is the basic plot. But the setting of the whole novel is a future society where a catastrophe happened on Earth that led to a split, basically into 8 factions with very different political views. And this is the framework of the story, the setting, but the main plot is her inner development from a overconfident person to someone who accepts her failure and becomes a better person. I mean, that is the basic story. And along that route, we are faced with a few mysteries in that world, and we're also faced with a number of new technologies. So for the reader side, the value is basically okay. The reader accompanies the character, but also the reader learns something new about technology and mystery, and somewhat some questions you might have how a future society would work or would not work. So that is the main point here. Okay. These are still open points here. I'm not sure yet. So this is still a question like where does she start out? But this is not really the point. The point is here the plot. Her I think 6, 8, 9 steps throughout the story. So we need. So this is basically the outline of the story and not the story itself. So this outline gives us a template to write a story around. So this is basically everything without the how's it called, the craft of writing. Really, if you want to describe a situation or a person, then that is the craft of writing. But here we're one step before that. We're looking at a outline, and based on that outline, we will be applying the craft of writing. Like, okay, how do you describe an overconfident person without saying she was an overconfident person? Because that is not very exciting. Okay, so what we will do, I mean, not today, but that is still basically our to-do list. We need to describe her life on Earth, joining or working at one of those 8 factions, and then her first mission on the way to Mars. And we will use these 2 settings to insert all the characterization we want. So to describe an overconfident person, instead of saying, okay, hey, she joined this or that organization and she was overconfident, we will use those 2 settings to have situations where this trait of hers becomes visible. And this will be the main challenge. Well, the first challenge of the character, namely, okay, she does everything she thinks is right, and yet she's facing a failure because she was overconfident, and then she has lost her confidence, and she's has a feeling of guilt that it was all her failure, and she has to process that, and then she's even faced with a committee that researches that, but she basically has no fault. No, ultimately, it is not her fault. I mean, there were other other factors at play, and basically then her transformation starts first with an implant, brain implant. We're talking about science fiction here, and with the brain implant, she will overcome her confidence issues, at least to some degree, and then she can go back on a mission, because these issues with her confidence, because she lost all confidence, hindered her to get back her license and to go back her job. Here we have to this is still an open point. What does it mean, license, in terms of being an astronaut? That is still an open point. So maybe it's not her license, but maybe just a medical exam or something like that. Okay. And then the main trials and obstacles happen where she regains her confidence, and eventually she no longer needs the implant. And that is basically her transformation, and she returns as a new person, and then she does something on Earth. And now, I mean, that is basically the inner story, and now we have to also focus on the outer story. So we have the different settings. Okay, we have Mars, we have the spaceship, we have Earth, we have Venus, we have then the character, her inner plot, but we also need a plot for the Earth, for other, well, what is happening to society as a whole, and we need definitely another character. Well, not definitely, but we just think at this point we need one. Maybe we don't, we'll see. And that character also has maybe an inner plot or an outside plot. And to make it interesting, we also have something, a mystery that needs to be solved. So something that she is doing, not herself in her own development, but in the world. And this is part of the mystery and part of the background story. And with that, we have a nice, well, tidy story with a protagonist who develops herself, who faces challenges, who has ups and downs. And we have a mystery with suspense. Okay, does she actually manage that? We have an inner plot of her, whether she is able to regain that confidence. We have the suspense about her failure and then returning to her mission. And we have some mystery going on with technology, and we have the looming threat or looming suspense in the background of that catastrophe on Earth, where we say, okay, this also needs some discussion, and tying all that together into one story so that we don't tell three different stories is basically again part craft, part outline, and that is something we need to accomplish. That is the challenge as a writer, and then maybe at some point going back to the drawing board. Okay, move a little. Okay, so I'll just reorganize it a little bit. I also added here the time she needs and some to-dos. So this is just, this will all be replaced by proper text later. And here are some thoughts about that. Here the committee. Here this. So this is all here, the protagonist with Catherine. And here we have backstory, question mark. Maybe let's put it as a 0. So we still have to think about, okay, what is maybe her backstory? How did she experience childhood? That is still something we need to figure out. Okay, but that is character 1. Let's say the rest here is just in quotation mark, just craft. If you're entrepreneurial, you could just hire at this point a ghostwriter and say, here, that is the basic story. Write me something. You could rewrite it or so, but a lot of it writes itself. There's no. Well, it's mostly craft. Like you tell someone you want to have a table, but coming up with the idea that you need a table and that a table would fit into your room and a specific table of a specific height, etc. That is something more on the creative side, and more on the craft side is really to take all this and turn it into a story. Okay, so the other characters. So we have the world, and did I already add it? Here we have the vice person, a third character. Let's we'll just start and see what we can get with our brainstorming here. Right. So after the first person here, the question is where. Let's just brainstorm what we do with the third person here. We have the wise person, and the wise person. The question is, okay, where do they meet? There are some stories where basically the protagonists never meet or hardly ever meet. and they're basically running in parallel, but we keep it simple and say, okay, the main story is really the story of the protagonist, and the, let's say, second character, vice person, maybe in quotation marks, is someone she actually meets. And maybe as a twist, so if you want to buy that book, spoiler alert, as a twist, they initially don't meet in person. They don't meet in person, and they also don't meet in, let's say, via communicator or something like that. I mean, she's a lot in space, so no, at least at first, don't meet at first via communicator, no email, video call, or something like that. So that is challenging, but still they will meet, and we have to look where they meet. I mean, there could be a meeting where they meet, but they don't realize then they're the same person, then they meet the second time. So this is maybe also something. Maybe they have met, but don't realize later they know each other. This is a little bit difficult to pull off, more on the technical side. It is possible if the communication channel is very narrow, where we say, okay, they just can, I don't know, signal yes or no or something like that. I mean, there are some science fiction stories where, I don't know, someone turns into a computer or something like that, and then they signal yes or no or something like that. So let's put this with question marks. So maybe they don't know each other. Would be easier. Okay, so where could they meet but not meet? I mean, during the mission here in space, I mean, they're very a tight-knit group. So I don't think that is something, or I don't know, on Mars or something like that. That is not the one. The second where they could meet is during the committee, but I don't think. I mean, this is a separate mini story basically. But more interesting becomes here. It's getting here when she receives an implant, and how the implant works. I mean, that is basically the, well, not necessarily fantasy element, but certainly the science fiction element upon which the story, at least on the outside, is based on. And the story on the outside is that you have a future society where they cannot send specialists into space. Because it's very expensive to send people to another planet. So their point is, okay, should we send robots? Yes or no? Okay, robots can do a lot, but maybe there's a reason why they can't send a robot for this kind of mission. So they send one person and with special abilities, and her special ability is she has a special implant, and that special implant allows her to receive a sort of artificial intelligence, and maybe artificial intelligence at that point is not yet advanced enough. So she receives a copy of, I'll just call it consciousness now, but I don't want it to be esoteric. I mean, it can be scientifically explained. So they receive a neural pattern from someone on Earth. So that means she has that person's knowledge, and she can, I don't know, repair something on the ship with that person's knowledge without that person having to fly there separately, or without her receiving the training. So of course this has to be explained in terms of I don't know how long the communication takes, etc. until there. So that is of course a challenge. Okay, so they meet via the brain implant, and this interaction between those two people could give us an opportunity to talk about neuronal science, about brain science, about consciousness, and what this would mean if part of you is someone else, etc. So this is room for neuroscience, cognitive science, I think it's cognitive science. And this could, of course, give us an interesting opportunity how to write those two persons that don't really meet but are really in contact. Especially because the person sending that information or that pattern isn't necessarily aware what's happening up there. So person is not aware of the communication. I mean, there are a number of science fiction episodes where this is basically the case, where one person meets the other person, but the other person doesn't know yet. I mean, there's a science fiction episode from Next Generation where they have to flee, I think, a force field in space, and what the chief engineer does, he creates a holographic figure of the inventor of the engines, and he not only gives that person or that simulation that person's knowledge, but also their character, their character, and this becomes then awkward in another episode when he actually meet the inventor of the engine. So I think this is a nice nice thing to do. Of course, there could be more, that some data is sent back, so maybe they are kind of aware of each other. Okay, so that already explains more about the person. So that person is an expert. Person is an expert. Person is living on Earth, or stationed, of course, stationed on Earth. And we basically have a plot where she has to get accustomed to the implant, to the memories of another person, etc. So this is a lot of writing material here possible. So what else? I mean, this is not yet much. This is all basically from the perspective of the protagonists, so how they could connect to each other, but it isn't yet a real story or characterization. The challenge here is, of course, I mean, we could just make something up, but then we have to go back and correct it. So the question is, what relationship we want both to have. I mean, the simple solution would simply, okay, they fall in love after the whole thing, and then get married. So the basic standard thing. So that is their plot. Maybe not. Maybe that is the way. But it's if you decide on that yet here at this point, it seems a little bit forced. I mean, that could be its own whole own novel or own story. So that is maybe let's just, I mean, we're still doing brainstorming. So maybe, is there a romance ? At the end. But why and how? So that is the question. The other point would be, So what is his role in the plot? I mean, her role, I mean, okay, I already said his, so let's just, is he male? Male, she's female. I mean, her role here, we described it that she regains her confidence and returns as a new person. The question, what does she do actually on Earth back? The idea was, okay, she goes on a mission on Venus to, for example, discover life or discover consciousness there, and that turns around the public opinion on Earth, and that changes how people decide the future or their own role on the planet. A little bit. I mean, this is basically a whole other plot here that we have to describe, and that is the plot on Earth and on Venus, and how they relate to each other. So how does a discovery on Venus change the public opinion on Earth? So that is an open question we have to answer. I mean, discovery of life, that would be the simplest, but the question is, does this really then change everything on Earth? I mean, maybe on the religious side, but does it really change something? So a discovery of sentient life, maybe a warning. I mean, a more down to earth explanation would be, okay, she does she examines the climate there, and she sees, okay, Venus underwent a similar transformation as Earth, and she sends that back as a warning. It is a little bit shallow, or it's a little bit unrealistic whether or not people then would suddenly change their opinion, because we basically know that, well, we know that by just looking at Earth and what is going on. The question is really, is this discovery really so groundbreaking that this will change the fate of humanity? I mean, let's think about, okay, we have a moon landing, and how that affected the perspective maybe on Earth, on space, and what humanity can do. Looking at Earth as a pale blue dot, that certainly had an impact, but how large is that impact? That is the challenge. So how is it still believable when she says, okay, she returns, I don't know, to the United Nations and makes a PowerPoint presentation about life on Venus, and then suddenly everyone on Earth changes their behavior? The point is, if you make a utopian or a positive a novel with a positive outlook, it is simple to say, okay, she just does that and people change their opinion. I mean, you don't really address then how this all happens. And basically the point is, you have to actually think how this would actually solve the problem, and how specifically would that change people's opinions. Just writing, okay, yeah, there's life on Venus, so all religions end, and people are happy on Earth, and they start being environmentally responsible or something like that. I mean, you can write that, but it doesn't help in terms of, okay, you don't show a solution, and it's a little bit unbelievable. So what we actually need here is to research. I mean, we don't have to come up with something on our own. We can just research existing, maybe novels, maybe studies from scientists. How can we save the Earth? Because that is also a plot point. At the beginning, the protagonist joins a basically space organization that aims to build colonies on other planets, basically flee planet Earth, use resources from planet Earth, and use those resources to build colony ships. And basically she switches to the opposite side where she says, okay, I don't like their views. I want to rescue planet Earth. And the question is, of course, how? So what does the opposite faction offer actually as a solution, and why do they how does a mission to Venus help Earth? So that is something we need to find out. I mean, we could add some fiction or some science fiction element here that, I don't know, they find a special mineral or special element, but we kind of it kind of begs the question, what exactly is that? How do they actually save anything with that? But the underlying challenge here, if it's not a dystopic novel, how specifically will this solve the problem? I mean, in many novels, you just have an evil arch enemy or something like that, and when the hero kills the enemy, then the problem is solved, easy peasy. Or you have a war, and once you have decimated the enemy's war machine, then you have won. But saving Earth, you can't do that with a gizmo, with a little special device, or with a single sentence, or with violence or something like that. So this is more challenging to research and to write. But maybe, I mean, the point is, okay, to write a positive outlook. At least it gives the reader also something to think about. A cop-out would be to leave it actually open to the reader. So what would leaving it open to the reader? So as in, now that the world knows they are not alone, will they change course and rescue or save the planet? Question mark. I mean, that would be a cop-out. It leaves it open for the reader, but it could work. I mean, that would be a possibility. But better is we need to actually research possible solutions. That is the core essence here. That we have to go. Okay. As SI plus, we have an ally on Earth. So this wise person is maybe an unknowing ally on Earth. So she knows everything about him through the implant. Maybe she does not know who exactly that is. So maybe there's a part detective story in here. So who is that exactly she's looking for on the planet? So I mean, maybe there is a regulation to keep specialists private or something like that. So maybe she has to find it, and this could be part of the mystery. And maybe, I mean, again, it would be a little bit of a cop-out if we say, okay, anything discovered on Venus, or the information discovered on Venus is suppressed. So maybe she needs the specialist to broadcast information about it, and her or she uses or the connection with that person through that implant to get to him. I mean, to form a personal connection and to basically get access. I don't know, get access to the servers. I mean, that would be one way. That's something they did in the movie Serenity or something like that. They gained access to servers and then they broadcasted that the colonies that I think the Federation also created was doomed or something like that. I actually have to rewatch that movie. So maybe that is part of the action. Maybe this could be part action scenes here, that we actually have action scenes where this is something that she needs to get contact to and to publicize that information. It's a little bit difficult, the whole thing about keeping things private, because I mean, this is something like 20 years ago or 40 years ago would be plausible that information could be suppressed. But today, I mean, you just create a YouTube video. On the other hand, if you look, for example, to China, maybe it is actually a society where she returns to that is very, and then we come to the next character, basically the world. So the world is very authoritarian. It's very authoritarian. Maybe she is I don't know, imprisoned after the mission. So they want to the government wants to suppress her information because that would interfere with the whole idea about colony ships, with the mission of creating colony ships. So again, the world is basically, not under the rule, but she's working for a faction that builds spaceships, and with the idea of fleeing Earth and suppress and don't caring about Earth and just suppressing other factions, and then she returns then as a hero or something like that. Then they capture her and she's put in prison and can't really speak to an outside source, but she still has that connection through her brain implant. Either it's disconnected or so, but she still knows that person and can convince that person really to get on her side and get out the information. So again, I think that is a nice solution already to some of the problems, and you wouldn't necessarily get there if you just write the main climax of the story. So I'm a little bit torn between those two possible ways of writing a story. I mean, you could just write a central piece of the story and then develop the rest around it, or you go more here the analytic route where you say, okay, how does this all fit together, that it's logical, that it fits together. Okay, let's finish this up. The character world, backstory, see Impact Beyond. So this is something I showed last time about the game story. Still, this needs again some craft in terms of writing. Backstory. An asteroid hit and the world was split into 8 factions, and we well, that is still something about the setting, about what technologies are used on that planet. And here we had two outcomes. I mean, we had in the game we had the possibility of having many different outcomes, but in the book we have two possible outcomes that are against each other. And we have some, this one maybe. So let's put it this way. So this is the major plot. Oh, let's copy it up here. Well, wait a moment. I want. Yeah. So the major worldwide plot is basically that you have two factions that are really dominant and they're really fighting each other. And that is the Solar Plus. They want to restore climate on Earth, want to restore the world, and you have the Church of Tomorrow that want to just use the resources of Earth to build a colony ship. So it starts out with the attempt of Solar Plus to have a global World Climate Council where everyone spends resources to fix Earth, but eventually the Church of Tomorrow says, okay, hey, we just recapture our industries and we do whatever. Just we use force to break the climate contract we had in the World Climate Council. So the World Climate Council failed the first time. The Church of Tomorrow says, okay, we recapture the industries by force and we continue building colony ships. We spend Earth's resources, and they use a robot army, and the other factions then basically have to overcome the robot army of World of Tomorrow, not World of Tomorrow, Church of Tomorrow, and then have a second attempt on the World Climate Council. So that is basically the major plot. So maybe as a short, so we have first plot the asteroid. Earth splits into 8 factions. The Solar Plus attempts to create a World Climate Council. Church of Tomorrow successfully revolts against by recapturing industries and just Church of Tomorrow continues building colony ships. And then with the information from Catherine, our protagonist, something happens, or something is that there's a sabotage. There's sabotage within the Church of Tomorrow, and this helps to overthrow the killer robots. Of course, killer robots have to be killer robots. And this leads to a new World Climate Council. So this is the plot of the world, and the contact with our protagonist is here just in one step. And this, everything else happens around her in the background, but this is basically the contact point. And this contact point is with the help of the specialist that she contacts, and here the wise person, the specialist, and he helps her to sabotage something within, and she basically decides, okay, she doesn't want anything to do with Church of Tomorrow. This is also, of course, also a plot point to do Why does she leave Church of Tomorrow? So here, not just the world has to, well, not just the world has to be transformed with with the new ideas she brings back from the mission, but also she herself. I mean, she has to do the jump from being a member of that Church of Tomorrow and to the opposite faction, and completely change her opinion. So that is basically the plot of the Earth. The backstory, well, it's partly here. Here, See Beyond Impact. World is very authoritarian. Well, I mean, the parts where she lands and starts. And she's imprisoned after the mission. The government wants to suppress information because that would interfere with the mission of creating colony ships. She sabotages key elements of the government with the help of the specialist, and then overthrow. Well, this. I mean, in other novels, this part, overthrowing the killer robots, could be pages and pages. I mean, we would probably say that in a few pages. And then positive ending. World gets together. I mean, it's a little bit. Oh well, it's a happy ending, but we'll see if that. I mean, that is the challenge. Okay, you have destroyed the killer robots. Now everyone is in favor of you. It's a little bit simplistic. Well, it's also a little bit of a cop out. Okay, question is, do we need additional? Well, okay, what is still missing is the technological part. So what is the actual setting? How does the spaceship work? Does the spaceship maybe has an AI? Maybe we'll do. Is there an AI? Do we need? Does it have a character? So that is the question. Then how does the spaceship look like? Or what type of spaceship? We need to somehow describe it. Then what technologies are discovered on Earth? At what point? And we probably need some. We need some characters where she interacts with both factions. She interacts with both. So we need a character on the Solar Plus side and in one character on the Church of Tomorrow side, where we say, okay, I don't know if that is the leader or the interrogator. So leader or an interrogator. So someone that leads her into basically from her position as a hero to back in prison. So this is basically the last trial where she says, okay, I now have that information and now the organization will rethink its position. But no, she basically undergoes her last transformation where she really sees the real character of that organization that wants to build the spaceship to flee Earth, and maybe that is the her last straw. So so that is the last straw, and she turns her back to to the organization and starts working with Solar Plus. However, that is then in actually works, if there's and how she gets contact or what she does there. Right. So the next steps is to get one level deeper and really address some of the issues. For example, one issue was why she here with that license. So maybe there is a severe lack of astronauts. So we have to paint a picture of Mangel of a shortage of a shortage of astronauts. So, and what could the reason be? Well, there's conflict on Earth. So maybe most of the other astronauts are busy with handling, I don't know, space weapons or so, with handling space weapons or something like that, or handling or building space lasers or so. So that is the one strength of that faction. They can build rockets, and they're really focused on that. So maybe that's the way they want to really create their foundation of their power. And they're busy with that, and maybe the mission to Venus is of low priority. But I mean, let's just send one person there, and with the implant and with the AI and one ship, and that doesn't cost much. But if she manages to finish that project, that also helps the general effort. I mean, that is the point. So this is maybe also an important point, that even though she is reinstated, the mission to Venus is of low priority, and that could explain some security concerns, or the whole thing about the implant, that you don't send 10 specialists there and just one, and because they are very good at building, but maybe not so good at attracting new people to their cause. So maybe there is a severe lack here of astronauts. So her services, even though she underwent that operation and she underwent the failure of a previous mission, she still is sought after, because she has the basic the abilities and her brain implant, etc. Okay, so I'm actually very happy about the structure. So if you have any comments, please let me know. So hello, Beer6845. So you have any comments about the structure, or if you have want to share your own way of how you approach stories, just share in the comments. There's also the older videos I also stream both on YouTube and on Twitch, and you can, if you want to basically view how I arrived step by step on that story, just watch my videos on my other channel and subscribe to that. I'll just post it here. One moment. This is on YouTube. I just post here the link. So if you want to join there, subscribe. So if you want to subscribe to my other channel, click here. So I think this is the 8th or so episode, and there's a lot of work going on until you reach really a plot where you say, that kind of makes sense, doesn't have plot holes. And we are now, I mean, there's some things to do to clean this whole thing a little bit up and to organize it a little bit. But the next step is basically to take all this outline, I mean, clean it up, of course. There's a lot of to do and question marks here, and put it into individual files, into individual chapters, add some maybe additional background information, and then basically start writing. That is then the challenge, and that is really the craft where you're given a challenge. Okay, describe the journey from Earth to Mars, and for the reader to visualize that. That is the challenge. We will do this next time. Well, next time we'll do some cleaning up, and we'll see if we can already start writing. About the general episodes that I do, I will switch from a weekly episode actually to a daily episode, also 1 hour each, simply to get myself also to write more. And so the next actually will be tomorrow, same time, from 9 to 10 Middle European time, or in CET from 3 to 4. And we'll see how quickly we can move forward. And I hope I've finished this novel in a few weeks. And you can just join me, ask your questions, or just see how a novel is written. I mean, I'm no expert. I mean, I published a few books, but those were all non-fiction books. This is really my second attempt to write a novel and to improve the novel. And the next challenges actually will be, okay, how to do it in specifically how to do it. There will be also, I'm thinking about inviting my editor, and she will, we will see, she will probably join, and we will then edit text together. That will be also interesting. But first I need some text to start with. So thank you for listening. If you have joined a little bit later, the stream is available from the beginning, either on Twitch or on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, and we will see not next week, but on Monday. So we will continue on Monday, and then hope that we have a lot of. So here's another question. Whether I have already published something. Yes, I think 8 books, but those were all non-fiction books. I have one unpublished novel where I said, okay, I don't know much about writing a novel. I first have to learn it, and now is the second attempt for a novel, actually. So the entire publishing is clear, editing is clear. The biggest step really was to write the outline for that to be logical. The second most challenging part will be the narration style, because I have set as my own goal to say, okay, I don't want an all-knowing narrator that says, oh, she's overconfident, but really more a cinematic style where I say, okay, I want to show and not tell, of course, in writing. So that will be a challenge that I still a little bit struggling, but feel free to join me. I mean, the whole thing is here about learning, not about I tell you that's the way to go. And after that, it's mostly craft, really to solve little problems, how to write it down, how to write visually, how to do the dialogue, how to characterize certain aspects of it, but the basic story is done because the research is done, the basic plot is done, but then really to get the craft part of writing right, that is the challenge. Okay, Thank you for your comments. If you have additional comments, just write it. I will just answer it then by text, or tomorrow at 9 o'clock or at 3 o'clock in Central American time, CE or something, CET, yeah, CET. I mean, it's the same time, just different time zones. Okay, then have a nice week, and we'll see us tomorrow.